And I have a very inspiring and very empowering women leader here today. Sylvia is president of Epic Records. She is a pioneer in the music industry. She was previously president of Universal Motown and was also chairman and CEO of Elektra. The roster of artists that she has worked with is unbelievable. So she's worked with Lil Wayne, Missy Elliott, En Vogue, Tracy Chapman, Erykah Badu, and Stevie Wonder, and the list is endless. So it is such an honor and a pleasure to invite Sylvia Rhone to the stage. And if you are tweeting and posting, the hashtag is #AfterWork, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot to tweet about because Sylvia is amazing. Okay, so I like to start with these things by finding out where you got your start. So it's always really interesting to know from a powerful executive, where you began and how you rose through the ranks.
I think I got my start when I was like 6 years old because I was a great music lover and a collector of 45s back then, which a lot of people probably won't remember in this room. And I just went to see music all the time. I went to college at the University of Pennsylvania, and I was groomed to go into the financial sector, and I was there for about 9 months, and I felt like I was still at Wharton School, and I wore a pair of pants one day, and they asked me to leave, and I was like, okay, fine with me. And I did, and I went to pursue my dream, which was to work for a music label. So I started as a secretary in 1975 or 6, and I just never looked back from there.
So what would you say was a major turning point in your career? Like when did you go from being an aspiring executive or leader to becoming one?
Right. There've been several major tentpole events in my career. One, as I worked at a lot of different companies in the beginning of my career. All were promotions. And I finally landed a job at Atlantic Records. And I became the vice president of the Black Music Division. And after that, my boss quit, or he got a new job. He wanted me to come with him. He was going out to work in Los Angeles for Dick Griffey at Solar Records. And I was very tempted to go, but I made a decision to stay. And when I stayed, they made me the head of the division. And within 1 year, the division that was losing money and was number 11 in terms of its ranking in the business became number 1 and made a lot of money. And so that became the turning point in my career in terms of being able to manage a business and being able to show a profit and being able to turn the whole company, that whole division around. And I think that my successes have, I've been in the business almost 40 years, and my successes and my growth have always been based on my performance. So, and in the music business, you're only as good as your last 3 minutes and 20 seconds. So you're always feeling that pressure. I was able to go from Atlantic and start a new label called East West Records that I had given a proposal to the chairman of Atlantic. And in the first year, we lost $15 million, and in the second year, we made $150 million. So that kind of set me up for the next big promotion, which was to be chairman of Elektra Records. And that was probably my most productive as well as exciting time in the business.
So what would you say that you do differently that other people don't do? Because I would say that there are a lot of people who have talent, who have passion, but you've achieved a lot and you've run 3 major record labels. So there's clearly something that you do that sets you apart.
You know, I've been very lucky in a lot of ways. And I think that's a big part of being successful. I work my ass off all the time. I'm very passionate about what I do. I think I have a good ear for talent and a good eye for talent and a good eye for executive talent. And I have surrounded myself with people who I think are smarter than I am. And so it has made my job a lot easier and more successful. And everything hasn't been successful. I've had ups and downs like most people in the music business, and those downs become much higher when you're in a high position like a president or a CEO. But I've been, fortunate to be able to get back into the business and again prove myself. So it's always, every day, you have to prove yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think certainly the mark of a true leader is being able to overcome adversity and overcome obstacles.
Right.
So could you describe a major obstacle or a turning point in your career and how you overcame it?
That's a tough question for me. Okay, I'll describe one, not in the particulars of it, but in the general points of it. I was the chairman. I was just appointed chairman of Elektra Records, and there was a huge management upheaval at the Warner Music Group, and they made us choose sides. So I could either have gone with the path of least resistance and said I was on the side of a person that I didn't agree with, that I didn't respect, and who didn't respect me, but he seemed to be the heir apparent. Or I could go on the path of resistance and align myself with the person who was my mentor, and I respected, and I thought had been treated unfairly. And it was so intense because I got a call like I was in the Pelican Brief or something. It was like late at night, whisper on the phone, whose side are you on? Da, 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 da. It was real. It was so intense. I mean, literally, that's what happened. From very senior people that I was surprised would go to that extent. It was the first time I was ever in corporate intrigue. Now I'm in corporate intrigue and it means nothing to me. I'm just, okay, whatever. But at that point I had to make a decision, and I made a decision based on my character and my loyalty. And I could have been totally out the door, but I was kept because I stood my ground. And so it taught me a huge lesson of that you really have to follow your heart. You have to really have ethics and principles, and you can never let those be compromised, ever, ever, ever. So that was, for me, a very significant time where I always felt I had character and principles, but I had to really show it.
Yeah.
And from that point on, it became very easy for me to hold my own.
So you mentioned a mentor, when you were answering that question, and I was going to go on to ask about mentors and if there had been people in your life who had been instrumental in your success, and how important it is for women or for everybody to have mentors.
I think mentorship is very important, and it's funny about mentorship because I consider a lot of people mentors for me. When I was coming up, I started as a secretary, and most of the women started as a secretary, and I worked in the promotion department. And when I was promoted, then I was on the road. So I was on the road with all the guys, and I felt like I had been born and reared in a den of lions, and they were so protective of me. And they were the seasons one, so we would be going on the road, and sometimes there would be 6 of us in a hotel room, and I learned a lot from those guys. They were tough. They were disrespectful to a lot of women, but never to me. And they really taught me the street business. As far as mentors going up the ladder, there were not really a lot of women that I could emulate at that point. But I found people, and they became close friends and close allies, and we helped each other, basically, because we were all new in the business at that point. So we're talking back in the late 1970s. So there weren't a lot of role models for us to follow, so we had to make our own path.
Has that changed?
I think so.
Is it better for women now?
I think so. Yes, I do. For women who know who they are willing to sacrifice for what they want to do, and have a dream, I think that there are a lot of opportunities, and I think those opportunities aren't as restricted as they were when I was coming up. If you're like a music lover, say, then you can do so many other jobs that are interrelated to music outside of the labels. The labels have shrunk so much in the last few years, so there's only 3 major labels, so therefore the job opportunities have shrank. And I think that you can do tech stuff, you can be in advertising, you can work for a brand. There's so many businesses that thrive off of music and have been built off of music that I think it has created a great amount of opportunity.
So just following on from sort of women in the music industry, I wanted to talk about female musicians in the music industry, and in particular, the marketing of women, of female musicians. So the examples right now would be, say, Miley Cyrus or Nicki Minaj, or who have a very sort of sexy, sexual image, and have been criticized for it. So would you say these are women who are in control and expressing their sexuality, or who are being exploited?
No, they're definitely in control. Absolutely. And they know exactly what they're doing, and they're very strategic and very calculated, and I admire them tremendously. I admire them as much as I would admire Billie Holiday back in the day. They are authentic. When you're trying to be overly sexy just to cover inadequacy with your talent, that's one thing. But there's nobody at a record label saying, you have to dress like this, you have to do this.
There isn't?
No. Not in the labels that I've ever been associated with. So those women really have, those women particularly that you mentioned are very empowered, and that they definitely control what they do.
And do you think it's fair that in order to be noticed and to get the attention that they are getting, that they have to be sexual, even if it's something that they're owning?
No, that's their choice. Okay. You can't make a generalization because of 2 people. So if we look at, I don't know, let's see. If we look at Lorde, she's not sexy at all.
Well, she is. In her way.
In her way, but not in the way that...
Right.
Not in your typical way, sure, that you would think you never see her bare an arm, hardly. And, back in the day, we've always had a balance of people, and it's really their decision. Erykah Badu I think, is a sexy woman, but she's not dressing like, sexy. So it comes in all different shapes and sizes.
Okay. So when you are looking at potential new artists to sign to the label, and because marketing plays such a big part in it, if there is someone who doesn't seem immediately marketable in the sort of conventional sense, in the commercial sense, what do you do then? What do you do with someone like Lorde?
But I think Lord was very marketable. She had the songs speak for themselves. And so I think what led her success in her career were having an amazing collection of songs and actually writing those songs and coming into the business with a new look. I think that whatever that look is, if it stands apart from everybody else, then I think you've made a statement. We just signed an artist, for instance, Meghan Trainor, and she has an overnight success. It's a #1 record in like 70 countries in the world. And she's not beautiful. She doesn't have like, a sample size, and she's not, getting up there and throwing herself out there like that, but she's super, super talented and approachable. And she has engaged people with her song All About That Bass. In fact, Fatima Robinson has been a big part of helping to helping with her imaging, and she produced, directed the video, and we're in the process of breaking this huge new artist who definitely has her opinions and not going to compromise, and I think speaks to a lot of women and a lot of young women particularly in a different way, and makes them feel comfortable in their own skin. So I think that we use these, you can use the Nickies and the Mileys, but the business is far more diverse than that. And so I don't think we should get stuck on that.
What about the influence of digital on marketing? So the likes of Rihanna and Justin Bieber, are known for having millions and millions of followers online. Do you think you can be successful without having that sort of digital prowess as an artist? I
think it's hard nowadays, especially for an artist. I mean, it's kind of like the backbone of our digital marketing department. Everybody looks at those numbers outside of the business, even if it's a brand that's looking that you want to do a strategic partnership with. Those social media numbers become paramount in their decision. So, the business has been shifting for a long time, and now most of our marketing really is digital. It's very little that's done in the traditional marketing space.
Right. And the business has shifted so much, so the way that artists make money has changed so much, and the traditional model of sort of selling CDs or albums is no longer sort of as viable. So can you talk a little bit more about how artists today make money? Is it all about touring? What are the economics?
I think the majority of their money, their revenue, is generated by touring. And when you're an artist like, say, Jay and Beyonce, they're making hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars on touring. They might not be selling as many records. But the fact is that no one is selling as many records as they used to, and we're not making as much money as we used to. The revenue has shifted very quickly from physical to downloads to streaming. And right now, the forecast is that streaming by 2016 will be our #1 revenue generator. And it's changed pretty drastically year over year. So we're adjusting to that change. And artists make money off of streams as well, but they'll make most of their money off of merch and touring.
Right. So the last question I wanted to ask is talent shows and the likes of The Voice and American Idol as a place to discover talent, and what you feel about that, and if you ever sort of watch to see if you can sort of spot the next big thing.
Yeah, I never watch those shows because their deals are already in place with the labels that they're connected with. If you really think about it, most recently there haven't been a lot of artists that have been successful from those shows. I don't think The Voice has ever had a success. I don't know. You guys might know, but as far as I know, there's been no one off The Voice to have success, and that's the highest rated show. So that's a great show. X Factor is done. And I will wait to see what American Idol does. So I think unless that format changes, I think that people are losing interest in it. I think people like to watch it, but they're not engaged with any artist that comes off those shows.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because I wonder what goes wrong, because they get such huge exposure.
Yeah.
And a lot of them, you know, are really talented and they can sing, and so I'm just curious about the disconnect.
Obviously, they're not as talented as those shows. No, but they really aren't as talented as Epic, before I got there, got all the artists that came over off of X Factor. Okay. And I can say that was very unsuccessful. So I think that there's also a perception with the real music buyer, if those artists are real. And you can't fool a consumer at all. The consumer is very smart, very full of information, and if you don't have hits, it's just not going to work. So I just feel like those shows are for entertainment at home, but that haven't translated into creating any careers.
Okay, don't go on American Idol. So a few quick fire questions, and then we're going to open up to questions from the audience. So start thinking of your questions. Okay, what is the mantra you live by?
Okay, I think karma. I'm very simple, and I think karma. What goes around comes around, and I believe in treating people the way I would like to be treated, and I believe it's important to have that character, a strong character.
What's the best advice you've ever been given?
To be patient.
What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
To quit my job.
What is a quality you most love in an employee?
I love a smart employee, a courageous one who's not afraid to voice their opinion, a loyal employee, and somebody that could be disruptive.
What is the characteristic you most admire in a leader?
I think someone that inspires people, someone that empowers people, and someone that really treats people well.
Who do you most admire or are most inspired by at the moment?
And there's not a person I'm really like. I'm not saying that in a careless way, but I can't think of anybody right now.
Okay. Final question. Given that we are with someone who is in the know in the music industry, who is someone that we should all be looking out for? Who's the next big thing?
Meghan Trainor.
Okay.
Oh no, I got a good one. I have a good one. Bobby Shmurda. So those are our two big artists right now, Bobby Shmurda and Meghan Trainor, and they couldn't be any far different than the other, but very much the same. Big hits.
Okay, cool.
Can you do the Shmurda dance?
Oh my God, I feel so uncool
a couple people
right
that
now.
can teach you in art.
Okay, so we are opening this up to questions.
You know, I wasn't really convinced that the company was a good place for me. You know, Solar Records at the time is a small black company, and I didn't think that there was going to be a lot of room for upward mobility. I would have to move out to LA, you know. The whispers, And then I actually talked to the people at Atlantic and asked, was there any upward mobility there for me? And then when they told me that there was, and I thought, let me take my shot. And it was kind of a scary, be careful for what you ask for kind of thing. But I think that in all the different changes in my career, I always prepared myself for the next step, but it was always very awesome step. It was awesome is not the word, very overwhelming. But you just jump in the deep end and you will survive. I have a daughter who's here tonight. I was a single parent after I separated from her father around when she was about 6, and it was challenging. But I got a kind of a good support system, and you just do what you have to do. And sometimes it was at the risk of my job, or sometimes it was at the sacrifice of not going to school events. As far as the people that I work for, it's not even it's not a male-female thing. If someone has something that's important for them to do, then that's their responsibility. You know what I mean? I don't get in the way of that. And I think it's important to allow people to have that space and allow them to feel the security that they can do it and not in any way compromise their position. So it's never even been a thought for me. In the music business is different than a lot of more disciplined environments. So, the hours don't start at 9 o'clock, they start at 10, but for most it's a little after 10. And then we work really late at night too. So the hours are strange, so you have to trust people. And I think that if you start out with trusting people until they totally run over you, then I'm good. And I've never been disappointed.